In this video, I'm going to teach you how to string a tennis racket. I actually just got done stringing this one. I did it in a two-piece. That's something I'll kind of talk about a little bit. But I got a lot of great tips and tricks, so stay tuned throughout the whole video and learn how to string a new racket, and maybe you can start stringing tennis rackets. So how I measure the string out is I have a yard stick, so 3 feet. I use it all the time. I always do things in two-piece, so I'm measuring the mains and I'm measuring the crosses. The mains you need 20 feet, so I do 3 pulls. So count it out: 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I go. That's 18. So then we got 19 and 20 feet. All right, so I'm good to go. I cut that. Whoop. Set it up there. Then I pull crosses. Crosses I need 19 feet, so I do 3 pulls. I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pull the 19 right there, and I snip it. Now I'm ready to string. So first thing I'm gonna do is, I got a 2 clamp system, so I line them up so it's in the middle of the strings. Some rackets, they have a little dot there or something to let you know, but normally you can just kind of, if you're having trouble, you can kind of tell by, you can look to see where a tie off is on both sides, and you can kind of go from there and count in to even it out. But it's all lined up. I know where this racket's in the middle, so just let it down. You want it tight, but not too tight, because you don't want to damage the frame of the racket. So, and then you pull it, boom, on the other side as well. You get your strings, and then you know where to insert your strings by, you can count the bottom. If it's even, you insert the 2 strings from the bottom. If it's an odd number of grommet holes down here, you insert it from the top. So I know this one's even, so I get my 2 strings. Alright. Boom, put it in the bottom. Just like that. Pull it a little bit. Get the other one on the other side. All evened out. And then I pull them. Get it all snug. And then the easiest way for me to, I just make sure they're even. I walk it out. And I even them out down here. Make sure I got an even amount of string on both sides. Okay. Once I know the strings are even, oops, that's gonna be tough. It's okay. There we go. I clamp it at the bottom down here, because I know my first pull, when I pull and I have to clamp it, it's going to be up here, so I clamp it on the opposite end. I already know I got my tension checked. I know this needs to be strung at 53, so I got that all good to go, but other than that, you normally would check. So, put in the tension, pull it, clamp, lock, release, and repeat. Once you get used to kind of stringing rackets, you kind of get in a little bit of a groove and a rhythm. A lot of it's pretty repetitive, like the mains and the crosses, making sure it doesn't crink up there. Boom, same thing. I got it through. I pull, unlock, lock. You want to lock these as close as you can to the end. That way you're not losing as much tension, because you don't get as good of a pull on this little end from that end when you pull on that side. So you want to have them as close as you possibly can. Oop. Put it up top, just like that. Okay. Same thing, unlock, boom. And then what I always like to do is, even when I'm not gonna pull this the 4th main on this side yet, I'm still gonna put it through because I'm already on that side. So I put it through. I feel it helps me go quicker And it's kind of easier when there's less string flying around, because it just gets kind of messy. You never want to do too many on one side because it puts too much uneven pressure on the frame. So I always do 3 on one side, and then I go back and I do 6 on the other. So it's never more than 3 mains being pulled on one side more than the other. Okay? Always making sure you don't want to crinkle the string or put a crimp in the string. It's one of the big things with stringing rackets is you want to make sure you're not damaging the string before it even gets to the cord as best you can. Okay, so I'm not gonna pull this tension on this one because that would be 4 mains pulled more than the other side. So I just put it in though, because like I said, helps not have as much string. Now I go back to the other side, start pulling on that side. Little tricky part, now I'm getting to and this is where you have to make sure you know the racket, what you're stringing. I know this is a cross for the cross hole, so I skipped that one, put it in the next one to go down. Some of the newer rackets, which is really nice, is they're starting to kind of have markings to indicate when they're skipped holes or not skipped holes, which makes a big difference, especially if you're newer to stringing, because you don't you're gonna not be in a good time if you mess that up. You'll have to restart the racket probably, and that takes up a lot of time. So I know this is a 16 by 19 stringing pattern racket, right? So I've done all 16 mains. I know that everything's clamped off. Now you get to the tie off. I know the tie off for the main goes here, but they have a nice book. There's books or things online you can tell where to tie off the mains. So I know I put it in. Sometimes it's a little tricky, so I grab the pliers or whatever they call it, and you can kind of help push the string through, grab it. I keep it simple. Just go over the string, under the string, back through, get a knot, then you pull. And I like to put my thumb right there on that edge while I'm pulling, so there's as little slack as possible, right? Because you don't want one of the main places you lose some tension on the string is from the tie-offs. So again, I put my thumb there around the edge as I pull up, boom. Same thing on the other side, pushing it in, right? I go over the string, under the string, creates that little loop, and I pull it right through. And before I start tightening, thumb in to kind of have as little slack given up as possible. Perfect. And I was always taught, before you snip that, you unlock. They told me sometimes if you cut it too small, this knots can slip out, but never happened to me, but that's just how I always taught. You don't want to cut these too small, right? Because you don't want it too small where the knot might come undone. So, but you also don't want it too long where it kind of catches on people's clothes or something. I'm sure most of you have done that, so that's about pretty good. And the main strings are done. Now we're on to the crosses. So we're about to start the crosses. Make sure you know what hole you tie the cross off to start in a two-piece. I know, like I said, I know this racket, so I know it goes right here in this hole. But this is one of the trickier parts of stringing a racket. So just like the end, you go over, under, and the only difference is you take this and you rotate it 2 times counterclockwise to create like a loop with just like a more interesting loop. It kind of reminds me of like a figure 8 with like a hook going through it. So you pull on that. You want to pull some of this tension out so it's not crazy. You don't have to worry about that too much. When you pull the first cross, it'll get a lot smaller. So then we start the crosses. This is the part that takes new stringers the longest time. It's the most difficult, but you'll get pretty good at it. You want to make sure you have enough string so you can do a good weave all the way through. If you can do a weave all the way through, just like that. Sometimes a little tough on this first cross getting through the hole because there's already string there that you kind of have to go around. So, and then when you pull, you push and then pull, push, pull. And you want to do that so it doesn't create as much friction on the strings, because if you don't do it this way, especially when using poly, it can kind of already create some indents which will break the string faster. And then a nice tip is you never pull, you always do one string ahead and pull tension one behind. So same thing, trick, there's a cross, there's a skipped hole here. So this last one went over, so to start, since there's a skipped hole, I want to start going over. That way the pattern's opposite of each other. And as you see, my weave was okay there. I did start with enough string, so it was kind of tough, but now I do the same thing. Push and pull until I get to the end, wanting to have as little friction on the strings as it's going in as possible. Now, like I said, I pull one behind, and to get that tension, I pull it a little bit until I see the knot get smaller. Now I know it's actually pulling and keeping tension in the string. I clip it as close to that side as possible to save as much tension as I can, and then now you pull the rest of the string through. Just like that. No skipped hole here, so now the last one went under, so now this one to start, I go over, and now I get back to my weave. Oops. Oh, this weave isn't as clean, so there we go. One of the big tricks that I learned is, saves me a ton of time, is I'm always hanging on to the outside string with my finger. I'm never dropping it. And that ended up saving me a lot of time on stringing rackets. Because the other way to do it is if you drop the string, now I have to grab through and I have to go through like this until I get to the end of the string. And that, it adds up if you're doing it all the time. So, it's a fun little tip to save you a bunch of time. Now, the weave's the toughest part to get really good at it, but once you get good at it, you're gonna go quicker and quicker. So when you're weaving through the string, something that helped me is I'm not really pushing the string up and down, not this string up and down. I'm kind of more weaving it around the top and bottom strings. So you're kind of like pushing the top and bottom strings around, and you kind of keep this string, the cross string, going kind of smooth through it. If that makes sense. So yeah, always stringing one ahead makes a really big difference in your speed of stringing as well, because when you want a little more, when you leave the string open, when you don't pull it and you're stringing one ahead, there's a little more of a gap between the up strings and the down strings, right? Because if I pull the tension, then it kind of gets compressed, and that makes it a lot harder to slide that string right through them. Oops. So I'm just gonna string the rest of this racket through, and I'll meet you when I'm down at the bottom. So we're down here to the end of the racket. Good to go, perfect. So I get this second to last cross and I pull it. Just like that. And this one can kind of be tricky sometimes, so you're trying not to bend any of those strings. Perfect, or damage the string. Last pull off. Got it in. Perfect, just like that. Yet again, I know where the tie off is for this last main, but it's right here. So I put the tie off in. Something that is important is, I'll show you after I get this done, but for the tie off, same thing. Under, over, through the hole. I want as little gap slack in this thing, so I put my thumb on it. Right, because this is a spot where you can lose tension, where you always lose tension, it's just a matter of how much. Put it in, pull it again, just like that. If I was new to stringing, I would check to make sure I didn't like do any accident and double overs or double unders and the racket looks good. But I haven't made a mistake like that in a long time, so I don't do that anymore. Unclamped, clip. Clip the top. People forget this sometimes, so we got that all done. Something that's really important though, and it kind of separates, I think, better stringers from worse stringers, is if you see this right there, see how the strings do not cross over each other? That's super important, because when the strings cross over each other, it creates extra friction on the outside, and maybe sometimes not as prevalent up here, but up here they can cross. See how that's not crossed, as well as that's not crossed. If the grommet's getting low, sometimes people might scrape it on like a half volley, and if those strings are crossed, it's gonna jut out a little bit, and sometimes that string can break way quicker than it should have. So that is something important to look for. I know it's tough when you're newer. There's a lot of those little things in stringing rackets that end up making a big difference.